welcome to yet another episode of the New to Retro Review podcast. This is a very special episode because this is the first one I have actually done live, and we have a special guest joining us all the way from almost the other side of the world, my pal, Lost in Nightmares Cosplay. How are we doing, dude?
I'm doing okay. I'm fine. How are you?
Surviving like all the rest of us.
It's a thing. It's a global pandemic thing.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
I have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, this guy over here cosplays Wesker, and even he's like, this plague is bogus. At least Ouroboros would have been better than this and more fun.
Yeah, it's legit. Like, it actually, like, it's more, let's say, direct in the results. It takes a lot less time, and you know, it's clear who's infected and not. So yeah, we should have just done that, but you know, you can't help it.
I love it. Oh my god. So guys, like this is he's literally like one of the coolest cosplayers I follow, and dude, like you only got like under like 500 followers, and I don't understand how this is possible because like you do literally some of like the best cosplays I've seen, and not in terms of like how the quality is that comes out, because the quality is fucking amazing of the outfits that you choose, but you choose characters that like people I think kind of like got like kind of forgot about, or like don't think about as much, or at least before some of them started making a comeback in many ways. Mm-hmm. I think like from Dino Crisis, like look at the stuff like you and Sheena did.
Yeah.
Like, how many people, like, I mean, you only really see people cosplay Regina, but you, like, it's like, nah, it's like, I'm gonna do the other guy.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people don't even know the name.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Like, oh yeah, you're the guy. No, first of all, thank you for the compliment. Like, I tend to, like, cosplay, no, I'm from Holland. The real curse. But, like, I tend to... Like, I do cosplay characters I like to begin with, but I guess a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But, like, I tend to gravitate... I like villains. That's been quite clear for a while, I think, with people who know me.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I also, like, I gravitate a lot to Capcom franchises and fighting game franchises. So, yeah, and fighting games tend to be, like, niche these days, and like Dino Crisis, for example, is one of those forgotten games, you could almost say. I mean, people want a remake. I want a remake. You want a remake. Who doesn't want it? But like it like the game's from, what is it, 1999, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
And like that's 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago, so like it's not top of mind of a lot of people, and I'm just like, yeah, that was a cool character, and I like Dino Crisis, and obviously Regina is the most cosplayed character because she's the most recognizable character of the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, like they didn't really put a stock in kind of like what Resident Evil did, and like I mean, like yeah, they made Gale everything, and like I said, character I do like, and then there's Regina, but like they didn't do like there's all these different Stars members, or there's all these different other characters, because by the time even Dino Crisis 2 came around, it was kind of like there wasn't that much big of a change.
No, you had like Dylan.
Yep.
Who was the other playable character, and like the cast wasn't that big to begin with. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They were just a handful of supporting characters, and that was it.
Bingo, yeah. So like and that's the thing, and God, I've been doing cosplay. I've been going to conventions since like 2004, but I've also been like doing photography for about like a decade, and a lot of cosplay stuff. And when it comes to like people who do like Capcom stuff, it's like some of the stuff I love the most, and I love when people cosplay characters that aren't like super popular right now, right? Yeah. Like like My Hero Academia is like the biggest anime right now, so you're gonna see like a ton of people doing Deku, or a ton of people doing, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but I always love when cosplayers are like, you know what? I want to do this character from this absurd anime that people probably don't remember, or this video game that people haven't probably played since 1995.
Yeah, it's just like that's like kind of how I pick. Like, I really like this character and I want to cosplay it. And I always say, like, to a lot of people, like, cosplay is kind of like the ultimate love letter to a character you like.
Yep.
And like, it's just like sometimes it's also just fun to represent like this forgotten franchise and just like paying an homage to a certain character.
Exactly, and that's what I love, where it's just like, where people will just do that, like they'll just dress up as that said character and just have a blast doing it. I mean, like you've done popular ones, like your Virgil's friggin' amazing, dude.
Thank you.
Like those, I think you were like near a church for some of those ones, if I remember, or whatever the case was.
It's like this big like cathedral thing in the middle of our country. And like the setting is really awesome, and obviously it fits the character very well. And like it's the only shoot I actually did with Virgil. I've only done one prop. I think I've worn him twice, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. Fun fact: originally I picked him up because my girlfriend wanted to play cosplay Bayonetta, and I was like, well, I'll do Virgil then, because Devil May Cry is a bit connected to Bayonetta.
Yep.
And I didn't really have a character in Bayonetta that I like gravitated to, so I picked Virgil because I do kind of like Virgil, but he's not like on Wesker levels of awesomeness to me. But like, yeah, that's basically how I ended up doing him. And like a lot of people were like excited seeing the pictures, and when I first saw the pictures, I was like, is that me? No, it can't be. Must be someone else.
Well, I mean, like, it's just like Virgil was a character that, like, I didn't see too much of people cosplaying for years. It was like only recently, around like 2013, 2014 is like when that. I think that was around like the time like the special edition of 4 came out that included Virgil.
Yeah.
As the playable character. So I think that's like why I started seeing so many people like trying to cosplay him in the future, because of that game and his popular comeback. Plus, he was obviously very popular in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as being one of the characters who broke the freaking game.
Sorry, I just wanted to say there was a reason, because you saw him a lot in tournaments, but let's not touch too much on that.
But yeah, like, and like some of the other cosplays you do your Bison from Street Fighter and your Geese Howard from the King of Fighters, like that, like those came out amazing. Two cosplays I've actually wanted to do for the longest time myself, because Bison is just awesome. I love the guy. Yeah,
he's a very like iconic villain. I mean, like he's still like the central. Well, you can't really call him an antagonist, because like there's not that much plot in Street Fighter, but like he is the central villain of Street Fighter. Like even Capcom's scared of killing him off, and he just wheels him back in for Street Fighter 5 and such. Like a lot of people recognize him because, let's face it, Street Fighter 2 was like a 90s phenomenon. But like when I was starting to thinking of like wanting to do cosplay, like I had like this basically top 5 of characters I like, who were just like basically, I want to do those characters because I like them so much. And basically I have to say Wesker was number 1, but Bison was like number 2, and Geese is pretty high up there as well, because they're like basically a few of my favorite fighting game characters to begin with. They're just like so badass and iconic.
No, they are. Like, they really are. And, like, you did Bison justice and everything. And if people are like, because my friends keep telling me, because I have a group of friends, we did a Street Fighter shoot. You probably saw those photos where I did a Street Fighter shoot in Chinatown here in Boston.
Yeah, those were cool.
Yep, and they were like, dude, like, you gotta be Bison for, like, a shoot for us one day. And I was just like, but who's gonna shoot it? And they're like, Tony, we can find somebody else. I was like, there is nobody else. But no, like, I mean, I got a photographer that I trust that would be very good to shoot something like that. But I really do want to do Bison, but I want to do his SF5 version where he's got the white hair.
Yeah. Do you want to do the battle costume, or just the default costume?
Just like his default one, but where he's got the white hair now and stuff. I really think that was like a nice touch that they did, because like that's one of the things like when I love with fighting games, like, they can change a character up completely in terms of looks, or they can just make small alterations, and I'm kind of happy with that. Kind of like how like Ryu got bearded Ryu, and then like Bison got white hair Bison. Not that big of a change, especially from the outfit, but it looked good.
Yeah, it's subtle.
Yeah. So it's just it's always been something fantastic just to see when people go the distance for characters that don't get cosplayed that much. Because I know a lot of people, it's all about like, oh, I want to be noticed, so I'm going to do the most popular one. But I have respect for people who can make their own outfits or even have the money to just buy one and rock it. But when you come to like do something like, a character that's not heard of that much, or you do a different take on that character, it's like a whole new ball game, especially as a photographer, to shoot that different version. It's just like, oh man, this person just created this. And I love that's like one of the things I love about being a cosplay photographer, is just the fact that like I get to work with people who think on a different level. Like I said, nothing wrong against people who want to do the basic outfit of a character and just do like, the basic stuff, because that's, again, always fun as well, because it's a job, it's exciting, you get to meet new people, but it's just that little extra spice people throw into cosplay that just makes it like so much more fun at times.
Yeah, to me, like even as a cosplayer, it appeals to me to like being, like you said, it's fine if you want to cosplay character A or B, which is very popular. Like we had the Deadpool face and the Harley Quinn face, basically.
Yep.
And if you want to do that's fine with me. But like, you stand out more if you do like this obscure a character, even if it's like a Marvel character, and someone's being like, well, let me do something more obscure, as in the Marvel Kingdom, and like someone's actually going to the trouble of like pre-Deadpool 2, that is like doing a Cable, for example.
Oh yeah.
You stand out more to me than Deadpool number 12, and not hating on that person, but like you're more of a like a obscurity, and like it's more special to me.
Exactly, yeah, and it's just, there's a uniqueness to it, and I just love that, and that's like why I like, as much as people complain about like cosplay drama and all the stuff within the community, I don't run into that because I don't deal with it. I'm too old to deal with that crap. I literally will like tell like people will start telling me like the newest thing and like what's happening, and I'm just pull like a Roger Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. I'm just be like, I'm too old for this shit.
I totally understand. I mean, it's just like let me be honest. I got like in cosplay 5 years ago, like that would be 2015. Sorry, sometimes I struggle with English because I'm Dutch.
That's okay.
But like I thought initially with like, oh, cosplay, well, there's not going to be much drama here because it's just a bunch of nerds who want to play dress up. Well, I was very wrong about that, obviously. But like, I'm just like, I don't want any part of this. Like people being like having, I actually participated in like an Umbrella Netherlands group at some point, and like that group had so much drama, and I'm just like, I'm just here to like have a cool shoot and take some pictures, and we don't have to like hang out the entire day with like so many people, because bigger a group, the more of a chance you have people that is gonna have issues with each other. So yeah, I'm just like, I just don't want to deal with that stuff. And like I've organized fighting game shoots before, and like I'm just like, okay, let's meet up, have a good time, take some cool pictures, and do things, and when we're wrapped up, you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like I always tell people, like when I start planning groups with people, I tell them I lay like, I mean, everybody's like knows that I'm very laid back, and I hate being like the guy who has to lay down the law, because I'm just so like just laid back to the point where I'm lazy. But when I'm organizing stuff and I'm putting my time into it, I tell people, it's like, look, there ain't gonna be no drama, there's not gonna be none of this, none of that. If you don't want to do a certain character in this, or you don't feel that you are gonna be up for this, or you don't like this person within the group, let us know now, and don't let us know like 4 months into planning when you become like a key member or something like that. And for the most, and like I said, everybody like listens to me on that, and that's why I've like avoided so much of the cosplay drama. Like actually, I've never really been drawn into any of it at all, because people just, they like me, they know what I'm about, and they know how I do my job, and they know that I'm here to work for everybody. I don't like play favorites to elitists or anything like that. So like I said, it's just like as much as there is bad, I have still been able to find the good within this community. I know you have too, because we've got like kind of like the same circle of friends and stuff, and we found some just amazingly kind, awesome people to work with and become friends with.
Yeah, true. I agree. It's like, to be honest, like I didn't expect when I started with this hobby, I didn't expect like, oh, make friends, and I was like, well, probably not, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
But all the better. But yeah, I totally agree with you. And like, yeah, in every like community, you're gonna have bad apples. I mean, I've been like, there's been some years I actually participated in like competitive fighting games, and like that's now a different ball game because I just didn't have the time to be like that into a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you're gonna have people who are nice, and you're gonna have people who are just like dicks, if I may say it like that.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, so you're not gonna escape from that. You have like those people at work in like in a bar or whatever. So you're not gonna escape that.
Exactly. So, like, that's the thing. That's, like I said, for all the bad there is out there, there's just so much good this community does, but you only ever hear about the bad. That's like why, like, I try to do so much with everybody and like work with everybody that I can, because people deserve to have like photos and have a good time, and that's always the best thing. What was it? You actually got a question from my buddy Curse. He's actually wondering if you have any new cosplays planned.
Yeah, I actually wanted to pop up like with I was looking at the chat. It's like quickly. I'll do it in chronological order, just to be do it properly. Matrix Vampire, underrated character cosplays are the best. You can tell cosplayers much love for the character, and it's so wholesome. I agree. It's just like the love letter to the character you like. And yeah, like you mentioned Ethereal Curse. Do you have any plan for a new cosplay? Yes, actually, because of everyone's biggest trend, COVID-19. we love you, COVID. We really do. I have a really bad plan, but I'll answer this question before that. I do have some cosplays running. I have actually 3 cosplays that are running close to being finished. First off is Sergei Dragunov. Of Tekken, and like the wig only needs to be completed with styling, and me and my girlfriend suck at styling wigs. So my friend Lucid Bell does it, but we haven't got around to it. But when the wig style Dragunov is finished, next to that, I am working on a little project called King of Dinosaurs of King of Fighters. I don't know if you know the character.
Yep.
He's coming along nicely. Just the tail needs to be done, some of the clawy bits, but let's just say he's on 70%-ish, 75. Some of you might have seen a post yesterday that I'm also making nice progress with a certain Darkstalker character named Pyron. And that's one of those characters that, like, I've never seen anyone cosplay him. He's my favorite Darkstalker character.
Really?
And yeah.
Nice.
And I wanted to do him, but at first I was like, yeah, how are you going to do that? Like, I can set myself on fire and then quickly take a picture, and then I can't even see the picture myself. So that's clearly not going to work. So I basically got a muscle suit, and I commissioned a pattern of basically of Pyron for a bodysuit.
Oh, right.
I had commissioned and had that like printed to the sizes of the muscle suit, and that got delivered recently. I just need to work out one of those face shell things, because what the Spider-Man cosplayers usually use, because it stretches out the mask better, and some lenses, and I need to do the horns and some flames effect. And I actually had the silly idea, you know which type of fireballs he throws, like the big orbs?
That I do, yep.
Yeah, I actually had the stupid idea today. It's like, I should get one of those huge inflatable balls and paint them like with flames and stuff, so I can throw it at people and it doesn't hurt them to begin with. But that's just a silly idea. But yeah, he's coming along nicely as well. So I should finish those 3 up first, and then before I start thinking about other things I would like to do.
Like every other cosplayer does.
yeah, it's a problem. I kind of want to, like, spoilery territory. I kind of want to do Cobra Commander of G.I. Joe.
Oh, yes.
It's like I usually gravitate to video game characters, but I grew up in the 80s, so my Saturday morning cartoons were like Transformers and GI Joe and stuff, so you kind of know what kind of like child I was.
That's like Cobra Commander. Like, I know GI Joe really isn't like as big as it once was. Like, you know, GI Joe was like big in the. I mean, it's been around even since longer than the 80s. It's been around for a long time, but like the 80s is where it all got popularized, and it was just huge back then, and it was everywhere. And then even into the 90s, like you know, like the mid 90s, like the old reruns kept people going for the longest time. And then they had that anime version or whatever it was, like in the very early 2000s, that was actually pretty good from what I remember.
Yeah, it was a bit dark and gritty. I think it was Resolute or something.
Yes,
subtitle of it. I
think you're right. They had that, and then they tried to continue with that live action series, which didn't really work that well. Even though they had Bruce Willis in it, who's like one of my favorite actors of all time, it just didn't feel like G.I. Joe.
Actually, stupidly enough, I liked the first one because it was so corny, and it kind of tried to do the thing like in the cartoon. It was like, oh, we have these like drill vehicles and just drill into the enemy base, and just like the second one tried to be a bit too serious for its own good, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like, it just, I don't know, like it's one of those franchises like you do want to see it make a return. And I mean, Transformers kind of did. I mean, I think Transformers really had their return was because of like those god-awful Michael Bay movies.
Oh, yes. Please.
And because like the toys were selling so well to the kids of a new generation, that's what picked it all up again. Because now there's that new Transformers show or whatever on Netflix, which I haven't watched, but people said it's very good.
You should try it. I actually wrapped up watching this past Thursday, and like it's dark and gritty, which is kind of nice that they took it like serious, and it's like, oh, there's robots and they bash each other together and pew pew pew. But like it was good. I wouldn't say like it was excellent, but it has like what's it called? It has potential to go somewhere.
Right. Well, because like they or something like that, like Hasbro had a thing, and someone leaked a poster, and apparently like this show is going to connect to Beast Wars somehow, and that was like I liked Transformers when I was younger, but when I saw Beast Wars like in the 90s and stuff, I realized I was like, oh my god, this show is, you know, for the time, graphic wise, it was amazing, and the writing and the acting for it was like unlike anything I had seen in the 90s for a TV show, especially for a kids show. You go back now and the writing and acting still holds up. So the fact that they kind of like they might do something with Beast Wars and Transformers together, even though like they're both in different timelines, because the Beast Wars is set long after the Autobots were like long and gone. Like they had like that great ascension. I can't remember what it was called, but like they weren't to conserve energon like deposits and all that stuff. They downsized the robots of the future. So it's like, I definitely do want to watch. You know, I actually have like photos I have to go through from a shoot that I did the other day, so I might as well throw that on Netflix while I work on them.
Yeah, no, you definitely give it a watch. I mean, it's 6 episodes, and like the episodes take 25 minutes, so it's not like not that long.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't like it after 2 episodes, you can always quit it. But let me see. Have you two played Death Stranding? No, I have not.
Same. I'd like to.
Really
it hasn't been spoiled for me yet, thankfully.
No, me neither. But like it, I don't know. It just didn't really appeal to me. It looked cool, but not like cool enough for me to try and play it. And these days, like time is limited, and I like well, you know, that's basically all I need to say.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, like, you know, like time is limited. Like I literally play fighting games to pass the time, or like when I have to do like a review on a game and stuff like that. It's a little bit different, but you know, it's really hard to like sit down and devote yourself to a game that takes like out especially a Kojima game where it's gonna be hours and hours of your life. Like, I mean, the most recent game I played was Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I forced myself to play that. It's not that I didn't want. I was like really depressed, and I was having a rough couple of months. But like, I was just like, you know what? I gotta suck it up, and I gotta play it. And I played it for like 3 hours, like all throughout. Like I think it was like June, everything like that. Like late June, I was playing that for like 3 hours every day at night after I got done working on photos and stuff. And I enjoyed it, but it's just like, man, I would really love to just go back to being a kid where I had more time to play games. Then again, games were a lot shorter back then when we were younger. I mean, it depends on like stuff like, except for RPGs and stuff, but.
No, you're totally right. Like the thing I've discussed this like plenty of times with my girlfriend as well. Like back in like 80s, 90s, even early zeros, like games were shorter. Like now everything has to be open world and take up 40 hours. And like for example, a game like The Witcher 3, like people recommended it to me, and I was like, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And like I just like lose interest. Like I was close to the end of the base game seemingly, but when I start playing, I want to do all the side thingies because it's there. But at a certain point, it becomes a bit of a chore, and it just takes too long. And certain bits of the story, like they suffered because of that, because not everything can be like epic blockbuster for 40 hours.
Yeah, I mean, to me personally, if a game runs like. Like if a story on a game runs like 7-8 hours, I'm kind of happy with that. If there's replay value to it, I'm happy with that too.
Yeah, and it's kind of like brings up like Resi 3 remake, people being like annoyed that it was short and cut content put aside. I mean, yeah, it was maybe a bit short, but if you ran through it, it was just around the same length of Resi 2 remake. And like I overall still enjoyed it. Like that's my opinion. If you don't like it, then fine. I mean, but like if I compare like storytelling, one of my favorite classic games, as in like single player stuff, is like the Legacy of Kain series.
Yep.
I don't know if you know that.
Oh yeah,
like,
start on the PlayStation.
Yeah, like the Soul Reaver 1, like. I think what would it be? Maybe like let's say 7 hours or something. Depends on where you know how to go and stuff like that. Could be a lot shorter. I can't tell you because it's been ages since I played it. But like I enjoy like something of that length more because it keeps me interested in the story and it doesn't drag on too long.
Yeah,
it's just like it's just a different time. For video games, basically. It is,
and that's the thing. I've talked about this before, people, and my friends who are like, like I said, I'm 33. A lot of my friends are like 21 and like 22, 23, and they're all like, dude, like, you sound like an old man when you talk about your games. You should be happy that these games are coming out. And I was like, look, I am happy these games coming out because I still get games that are the length of time that I enjoy. And everything, and I still get my fighting games too. So like, I'm not complaining about like how how long the newer games are. I'm sad I don't have as much time or an attention span to devote to something like like a new like how long Death Stranding was and stuff. Like I said, I will get it at one point. Like I will be getting it, but it just wasn't on the time to get it at that point. But I'm just glad that like in a world now of like gaming, like where they're still like they're trying to make like these big blockbuster games. They still make some of like the great old time games. I mean, hell, like Streets of Rage 4 is like one of the best examples. Played that on stream with some friends of mine and everything like that, and we all had a friggin' blast. But so yeah, I guess like speaking of like like fighting games and talking about Darkstalkers, you're pretty much the person who called this podcast. They're like, yeah, can I come on and like talk Darkstalkers? So honestly.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes, as they say it.
Yeah, let's do it, dude. So, like, what did you exactly like want to like talk about with the people and such?
Well, a lot of I'm seeing some Victus. Yes, I have to agree. We're still on vampire territory, but like, Darkstalkers is kind of like a cult classic.
Yep.
Like, a lot of people know of the franchise, not specifically having to have played like the original games. Just for people who don't know, like Darkstalkers is basically like the wicked stepsister of Street Fighter. Like it was released in 1994, if I'm correct.
Yep, 94.
95. Yeah, don't pin me to it. And like they just upgraded, Capcom just upgraded their arcade hardware to their CPS2 thing. and it was basically their first original fighting game for that title. I mean, they have Super Street Fighter, but it was an update. They had X-Men Children of the Atom, but it was obviously a licensed game. And then they just created Darkstalkers, Kano Raziel. I can't choose. I cannot. The coin lands on its side. It's hero curse. I cannot choose. I'm sorry. But anyway, back to the Darkstalkers. Like it stood on its own 2 feet for a bit, and like it had tough competition during that time because Capcom was sticking to their 2D guns basically, while your Namcos and Segas were coming up with like the Virtua Fighters and the Tekkens and you name it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
And like the last game was released like maybe late 90s, being like Darkstalkers 3, aka Vampire Saver.
That was 1999 if I remember correctly.
Okay, no, you might be right. You might be right. And like after that, like Morgan specifically popped up in a bunch of crossovers because he's always the character that gets shoved.
Oh yeah.
I can understand why. I mean, like, she's basically transcended Darkstalkers at this point, like years ago. Like, people know who Morgan is, and then you would ask, like, do you know Darkstalkers? And they look at you as like, wait, what? And like, she's a very appealing character. So basically, she's always like, if Capcom has a crossover game, fighting game or whatever, you're gonna see Ryu first, and then it's Morgan, and that's basically the bread and butter of that. But I was just like a lot of over the past few years, like a lot of people have been like clamoring for, oh wow, are we going to see another Darkstalkers, and are they going to make a comeback? And there was this tease with Darkstalkers Are Not Dead during Street Fighter Cross Tekken promotion, and with that to the side, like Capcom churned out too many fighting games in like late zeros, early tens, I should say by now. And like people are still asking for, we're going to get a Darkstalker game, and we briefly discussed on it as well. It's like I honestly can't see like Darkstalkers as a fighting game surviving at this point in time. I mean, I would love to. Don't get me wrong, but like it's fighting games are already niche at this point in time, and like Capcom's chugging along fine with Street Fighter, but like they've learned from their mistake that they're not putting out like too many fighting games together because you're just gonna have that self cannibalism. But like I actually already thought of the thing beforehand, and because of the recent Street Fighter reveals, which I'll touch on in a little bit, I just think they should roll the Darkstalker characters into the Devil May Cry series.
That would be interesting to see something like that.
Yeah, and my reasoning is because I don't know if people know the franchise. It's a little franchise called Final Fight, which was this late 80s and early 90s beat 'em up series. And like at a certain point, like the beat 'em on genre was just like, it was withering because it was a typical arcade thing. It was like very hard. You have to put quarters in it and you would get a bit further. And obviously on console, you have unlimited continues and like the challenge is gone. And like that genre just withered over time. I mean, it has some resurgence, like you said, with Streets of Rage 4, which is a very good game. I mean, I picked it up as well. But like they eventually wheeled in Final Fight characters into Street Fighter, so the characters could live on. Like you would have your Guy and your Cody and your Rolento and Poison, and like especially like characters like Poison are still very popular, and they have like a different platform to still live on because the characters are like well designed, but it would be a shame if they would go to waste.
Yeah.
And like fast forward to this past week, we had the Street Fighter 5 Season 5 announcement, And besides Dan, I know you were very happy with Dan to call him out. We got like, I was very surprised by this character announcement being a Rival Schools character. And for those who don't know, like Rival Schools is a fighting game franchise of Capcom, which was released around 96, 97 maybe, or 98, like past half 90s basically. Like one of the many fighting games they have, and like dormant series by now. And like it had a connection to Street Fighter because Sakura was a hidden character in that game as well. And they just announced like Akira from Rival Schools for Street Fighter 5, and I was just like, okay, you're just wheeling Rival Schools characters in Street Fighter now as well, which is cool. So they can like have another lease on life, and that made me think of the thing again with Darkstalkers. I'm just like, well, Darkstalkers is not going to fit in a Street Fighter game. I mean, it's a fighting game, but like, if you look at the characters lore-wise, like the power levels are just like ridiculously different. I mean, you have Jedha who basically creates an own dimension and stuff like that, and then you're gonna have little Chun-Li who's going to kick him. No, it's not really gonna work in my opinion. But so I was already thinking like, I think that the thought popped in my head like around 2 years ago. It was like, why wouldn't they wheel in like Darkstalkers into Devil May Cry, or even like, or if they don't want to do that, like Morrigan is an extremely popular character, give her own solo game, like a Bayonetta-esque game or something, because that would work very well with her design as well. I'm amazed that Capcom never has done something like a solo project with Morrigan so far, because she is a very popular character.
Yeah, if anything, she's more popular than the game she comes from.
Yeah, definitely. And like at this point, I can like there are parallels between like Devil May Cry and Darkstalkers. Like you could say it's set in the same universe, because like just the whole setting is very similar. Like Darkstalkers can be a bit more comedic, but then again, Dante impersonating Michael Jackson when he gets a certain weapon, I mean, I don't see the problem there. But like, I'm just like, now is actually a good time with like slight, well, it's not really spoilers I guess anymore, considering Devil May Cry 5, like at the end, like Virgil and Dante, like I'm not gonna say they're retiring, but they're like occupied with other things. And I mean, it would be the perfect time to wheel on some Darkstalkers into the franchise. I mean, you can have like Jedha as a new antagonist, because he would fit that bill perfectly. And like, you can still even have your Dante and your Nero as the main character, but like you can have supporting cast, or like I said, give Morrigan her own Bayonetta-esque game or something that would work. Like the parallels are absurd. Like you can have Lilith as the Jean character and whatever. Like just do it Capcom. Basically, is my opinion at this point. But like Capcom is a strange company sometimes. But it's just, to me, it seems like it's such a waste, because like those Darkstalker characters, like a lot of them are very appealing and unique, and they're just like basically collecting dust in the video game graveyard, and only to pop up like in the typical crossover games like your Marvel vs. Capcom, or Tekken in this case as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say Capcom vs. SNK. They got a couple in there, and that's the weird thing about all that too. It's like, you do have all these IPs, and I feel the series can't make a comeback because they've been gone for so long. Yeah. That the reception and the marketing for it might not work enough. Now, Streets of Rage 4, that worked on numerous levels, because that franchise has been gone for nearly 30 years. Cause like I think the last one came out in like 1995. So, they really marketed this game very well. They kept people up to date on it, and it's all around an amazing, fun game. It's kind of like, it's playing Streets of Rage 4 is kind of like you never left the franchise. You come right back to it, and it's like the same thing you loved before, just with a fresh coat of paint. And Capcom, I get why they're a bit hesitant, because if anybody has seen Matt McMuscle's video, the Flophouse Files on Darkstalkers, which I shared, and he was like, I was talking to him about that, and he's like, dude, do a video on it. And I was like, nah, you already did it, man. He goes, no, but you could have different insight. And I was like, oh, okay. So one of the things that he doesn't mention in his video that I thought about, what if Capcom just decides, all right, you know what? We don't have the time to devote to make a new Darkstalkers game. I'm not sure it's going to work. What if we just pass it off to another developer? And one of the best things I thought of, of this, where it's just like, well, if we're going to do something like that, why not give it to the guys who made Skullgirls?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, like, Mike Z even has, like, mentioned it in the past.
Mike has, yeah. And Alex, who does, like, a lot of the artwork for it, too, I think he actually drew Morgan in the style of Skullgirls characters. And the thing, I'm like not even the biggest Skullgirls fan either. I own like a sealed copy of it that like limited runs sold and everything like that. And I have played the game with a buddy of mine a couple of times. I do like enjoy it. It's not like one of my top fighting games, but I could see the appeal in how Darkstalkers would work, because Skullgirls is kind of like a dark universe in many ways. And if you took that, because here's the other thing too, I don't think like characters like Morgan actually look good in 3D. Like when you look at her in like MVCI or MVC3, sprite work has always been what made Darkstalkers such a beautiful game. It's very, because of that, like like the CPS2 that they had, or whatever it's called, that rendered Darkstalkers, not just the sprites, but the backgrounds, to blow anything out of the water that Street Fighter 2 did back in the day. Now, I'm not saying that the levels aren't like beautiful in Street Fighter 2 and the subsequent, like Super and Turbo and Hyper Fighting and all that stuff, but they're very static at times, where everything just seems so alive in Darkstalkers. And like, especially when a character throws like a punch and stuff like that. I mean, look at BB Hood in Darkstalkers 3. Like, she is super animated, for crying out loud. Anna Karis is the same way. Lord Raptor. Like, all of them are very well animated because of that, and it transferred that when they finally made X-Men Children of the Atom, like Wolverine being like hunched over and like how he's like always like moving and his claws are moving and stuff, like things like that is what was really good about it. And I think that's what could be so good, like so good used in something like Skullgirls, because the old style sprite work, or at least hand drawn, works a lot better than I think a lot of 3D fighters do. Because you look at something like King of Fighters 13 on the PS3 and 360. You look at something like, as much as I don't like this game because I'm just terrible at it. I know it's a good game. I'm just terrible at it. Street Fighter Third Strike has some of the best sprite animations and background works. So all that stuff could work so well in this new era where we don't have to have it. Because, like, here's the thing. Ono may have saved the Street Fighter series by doing Street Fighter 4 and taking it into the realm of 3D that they did. But I don't like how the character art style looked in 4 that much. It's not that bad. I got used to it. But 5's was a lot worse because the anatomy was like all over the place. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't really think these characters need to go back to being hand-drawn. Now, I did see years ago, like what Street Fighter 5 was originally supposed to be looking like more photorealistic. And I actually liked how it looked. I think it was kind of better than the version we got, but they wanted to stick with like that, that Eastern anime type of style to it that you see in games, So, I don't know. I feel that like Darkstalkers has been gone for so long that you need another company, because I'm not trying to like shit on any like big companies and everything, but or any devs, because devs unfortunately have to answer to the higher ups, and that's the terrible thing. Like, you get like great developers that have to answer to higher ups that don't understand the gaming community. Like, they're older guys that don't play games. They're looking at it as a business aspect. So when you get someone like like Mike Z and the rest of those guys, or even small guys like Iron Galaxy, the ones that helped out like Third Strike and Dimps, who worked on like Street Fighter 4, these guys cared about making these games. And they didn't let money or anything like that stop them. I mean, look how well Killer Instinct was handled, right? Killer Instinct was a long dead franchise and got reborn on the Xbox One as a launch title, and
it was really good. It made me buy an Xbox One. Like, I bought it literally for because I played Killer Instinct at like an expo, and like it was the reason I bought an Xbox One. I had like in total 3 games on that. Like, the moment it was available on PC, I still have it somewhere. It's in the basement, but that says enough. But like, Killer Instinct was really well done, and even like by a small team like that, and like they didn't have like tons of resources, but they got like greenlit by Microsoft. And like Capcom seems like stubborn sometimes. I know like it's been proven, like you say, there is still a market for like 2D games and sprites and stuff like that. That's been like basically proven by now. But like I know it's more expensive, and the suits basically want to see like, I mean, Capcom has made that mistake over the last few years, like a lot. Like they try to make Resi into like kind of like a Call of Duty shooter and stuff.
Yep. And they also the big thing was they focused more on esports, which is something that hurt them, because Street Fighter V was pretty much rushed because of esports, and you know, that game launched at $60 with like a cast that wasn't up to par with what it should have been. And you know, Killer Instinct did it right. They launched it pretty much as a free game, and if you wanted more characters, they would release the characters so you could play them for free for a while to see if you would like it, and then you would drop the money to buy it. And then like obviously like they released the physical version with everything on it. But that was the beauty of what like Killer Instinct did. And I think, you know, if Capcom, they need to stop focusing on esports, because esports will always be there at this point. Like you got to remember why you're making these games, why these things were so popular back in the day. And this isn't just Capcom. This is a lot of companies out there that do that. You know, like one of the best things I've always said is that fans do it right. And when you get somebody working on like a fan game or a fan movie, like, I don't know, Street Fighter Assassin's Fist is the best example I can give. Mm-hmm. Assassin's Fist was like a thing that appeared on Machinima years ago. Like they filmed all the episodes. I don't know if did you ever see it, dude?
No, because it was blocked in my country.
Oh, dude, I gotta find a way to get it to you, man. I'll figure out how to get it like on a Google Drive and send it to you, because you're missing out. So like, for anybody who hasn't seen it either, like I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it's pretty much set before the very first World Warrior tournament, like the very first one, the Street Fighter game that nobody played back in the day. And it's the beginnings of Ken and Ryu and their training, and like with their master Goken and you know, and like things about the past and Akuma, and there is so many throwbacks to the video games, to other things. There's throwbacks to even what was it, the Street Fighter 2 animated TV series. Mm-hmm. There's a scene like where Ken and Ryu go to a bar, and like they start getting like hassled by these dudes, and like they get thrown into like some kind of fight club. I'm like, oh my god, this is almost like, you know, when Ryu fought Guile in the animated series, and Guile kicked the fucking shit out of him. It was really, and like Yoshinori Ono had like a cameo in it. It's really good, because the guys that wrote it, Joey and Nash, who also played Akuma in it, and Christian Howard, who played Ken, they're fans. So like they researched it. And I think it took 5 years to get this project off the ground, but when they got it off the ground, it was like the biggest hit for video game movies. I mean, it kind of was given in episodes, but I think in DVD form, it's like in a movie format with chapters.
Yeah.
But it was so good. And then there was things like the Metroid fan series. I think Jessica Chobot played Samus in it and was so brilliantly designed. And then I don't know if you saw it, dude, but it was this thing called Broken Gear. It was a
I've seen that.
Yeah, dude,
that was good.
The guy who played Hagar is Hagar. He fucking piled drive that guy who stormed the media thing. He broke him right over the desk. Like
and that fan film, like, actually, like, if you would compare it, like, it didn't have like tons of actions or something.
No.
But like just the setup was good, and it was more like to a prelude to final fight. But like it came over believable, and they played to their strengths, and not like if you have like limited resources and you need to play to your strengths and not go overboard and know what works and doesn't. And that's even like just fan projects, and if they can do it better, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, like there's tons of indie developers being with games like Konami is a good example with that. Just look at like Castlevania versus Bloodstained. I don't know if you've played Bloodstained. Like, depending, being Curse of the Moon or just Symphony of the Night, they're good games. And like Konami doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah,
They
Konami
like
just like
money.
licensed it out
Let's say
to the guys at Netflix to make it. They're like, oh, well, we got our money, so if it fails, it fails. But hey, we got money out of this deal
Yeah.
and stuff, and now it's a huge success.
Yeah, it's just like at least Capcom isn't like on that level yet. I mean, they're doing a lot better the last few years, especially with like the success of Resident 2 remake, Monster Hunter World, especially.
Yep.
And like they seem to learn from their mistakes, because like you said, Street Fighter V was rushed out of the gate. Like when it launched, it was basically just like there was a versus mode and online mode and training, and if you like unlocking colors, then we have something for solo play content with input reading, survival mode opponents and stuff like that. But like they forgot about like the casual crowd, which is a big like part of their like customers, to be honest. And there was no arcade mode. Like every self-respecting or non-self-respecting fighting game has an arcade mode, and that's just like they had to even create an arcade edition for that, which is kind of like they fixed it eventually. But like I'm going to be honest, like I don't play Street Fighter V a lot anymore, because like it took so long for them to fix all the things and no communication and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like I just have like a love-hate relationship with that game. Like it has some nice things in it, but also some horrible things. And like now they finally did a roadmap, and it's all stretched out to like fall 2021, and I'm just like, they even tease like, Capcom Cup states 2022, and I'm just like, so we're gonna get Street Fighter 6 in 2023 or something. I mean, I don't want to rush that out of the gate as well, but like by then that game's like 7 years old or something.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, like just the handling of Street Fighter V was it was rough, dude. Like that was. Yeah. You know, like, I like Street Fighter V in some regards, because, like, I love what they did with, like, the characters. Like, I think, like, Sakura looks cooler than she ever has before. I love Cody's, like, road to redemption from, like, Street Fighter to, like, Jailbird to the mayor.
Was a nice story. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like, that stuff is cool. But, like, all the stuff that they left out, it's just like, man, like that. And then, like, obviously, like, the netcode is terrible in that game. Yep. A lot of like these developers don't understand that netcode's a huge thing, and I think what really needs to be done. This is what I praise something. This is actually what I praise Capcom for Street Fighter, not Street Fighter. Sorry, Resident Evil Remake 2, and companies like Square Enix as well for Final Fantasy VII Remake. They got fans who were fans of the game when they were kids, and they have them working for them now, and people who worked on the original projects. Some of them were brought back, so that's why Resident Evil 2 and Final Fantasy VII Remake were as good as they were. I mean, I got some issues with Resident Evil 2 Remake, like Scenario B, and how it was kind of like nothing really was in it type deal. It was kind of the same game over again, but I still saw all the work that they put into this and the love, and I'm just like, this is what Capcom needs to do with their fighting game division, is like they need to get grounded. They need to start because I mean, if they just look on the internet, people do want Darkstalkers. Now, again, because of how many times like they've put out collections, like 3 times, like Chaos Tower and the one that for PS2 that only came out in Japan, and then Resurrection. Yeah, like
the thing I don't understand with like when they were gauging for interest in Darkstalkers, because they did the thing with they released Street Fighter 2 Turbo on Xbox Live back in the day, and they were surprised that an arcade re-release sold that much that finally got like Street Fighter 4 greenlit. And they did the same thing with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for PS3 and Xbox 360. And that thing sold very well. So that's why Marvel 3 got greenlit. And then they were basically like, we'll give Darkstalkers a chance. But like that franchise never had like the original sales and name recognition as the other 2 titles.
Mm-hmm.
But like their expectations were ridiculous for like just a collection of games that were at that point like what were they at that point? Like maybe 15 years old or something, and have been re-released. Like people were asking for a new game, and like not the same repackage again. I mean, it's nice that they release or do a re-release on a current console. I mean, Capcom's known for that. I mean, they're going to re-release Resi 4 on PS5. You could just put yourself on fire and not worry about it, because they're going to re-release a Street Fighter 2 on PS5, and then every port they usually re-release. I mean, that's Capcom for you.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just like, yeah, you need to sometimes take a risk, and I know they weren't like in the best state, let's say a year or 6 ago, because they were doing bad at that point. And they, like, Sony had to do that deal with Street Fighter 5 exclusivity for like console with Sony, because like they didn't have the funds, I think, to fund Street Fighter 5 and develop it, because they were like in dire straits at that point in time.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just like, you can't forever like hog on like the existing things, like the typical, oh, we'll churn out a Monster Hunter and a Resi and slap Street Fighter on a thing and a 6 and call it a day. Like, eventually people will tire out of that. I mean, yeah, they're doing good, for example, with the Resi remakes now, but like, they are 2 and 3, and like at a certain point you have remade all the things, so you're back to square one again, and people will get tired eventually. Like, oh, it's another remake.
Yeah.
And, like, Darkstalkers could be something very special because it's very unique. Being like, it would also stand out, what you say, if you do it in a 2D style, because like it's pretty much built for that. And like the animation's very unique. Like they have like all these unique things, like when they're electrocuted or put on fire, like they just look very different and funny in certain aspects as well.
Yeah, extremely animated type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have like these little touches when Dimitri, who's, I wouldn't call him the main character anymore, so thanks to Morrigan, but like he's this vampire. And like he uses like kind of an aura to look like a human, but he has like these key frames when he punches or kicks, I should say, that you this certain frame you can see his true form. So you see his vampire form. If you pass the game, then you see it, and it's little touches like that like make it work. And I don't see that like happen in 3D, especially with like characters like Lord Raptor, or I should say Zebel Zarek in Japan, like with the whole chainsaw kicks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The way he walks, and like there were some Darkstalker characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and like it looks a bit more wonky in 3D because these like characters are very elaborate in their movements. Like I could not see Anakura's work in 3D that much. I mean, that was back then. Technology is a lot better now, so I would not say like it cannot be done in 3D, but like it has a certain appeal to it in 2D, and it could stand out more if it's done like that than being Street Fighter, the horror edition, basically.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, you look at things like Udon and stuff. They've done the same thing. Like they're keeping Darkstalkers alive. Like Udon, like put out that comic, like the Street Fighter versus Darkstalkers thing, which from the things that I saw and stuff, it was pretty. I haven't picked it up yet, but it was really awesome. I was just like, see, like this is the love, man. Like this is the proof here. Like people want to see this stuff, you know. I mean, like you said, it'd probably be hard to do like a serious Darkstalkers versus Street Fighter video game. Because of how different the characters are. I know, like, Morgan's been in the crossover games and stuff, but everybody's so... You look at Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you've got Doom throwing missiles, and you've got, like, Morgan throwing Soul Fist, you got Virgil teleporting all over the place, Zero bouncing off the walls like a crackhead, so, like,
And here comes Ryu, the ordinary man.
Yeah. Like, what is he gonna do? Just, like, he's gonna start punching illusions and stuff? Like, it's...
That's the thing I had with, like, just being Marvel... Marvel 2 I understood because they basically just chucked out all the sprite work they did in the past and threw it in there. But with Marvel 3, I was like, yeah, I know they what's it called? Like they need some Street Fighter representation in there. I know you're always gonna have Ryu and Chun-Li. I mean that's a no-brainer.
The staple,
like,
yeah.
How far do you need to boost them up in power levels to make them competitive? Because let's be honest, they were still like on the lower end of the bargain. And I think C Viper was decent, but like C was kind of a Marvel character to begin with in Street Fighter 4. Like she had just like that move set.
Yeah.
But like I'm just like, if you pit them against like this Marvel universe, of course you're gonna have Iron Fist, which is a bit more grounded, but like you need to bring out your bigger guns. Like you need your Virgils and your Weskers and stuff like that to battle like super powered like super soldiers and adamantium cladded super healing guys and stuff like that.
Exactly. And yeah.
That's where Darkstalkers come in as well. But like the thing is, it's just like kind of weird because they only wheel them in for crossovers and they're scared of doing something separate with them. And like rumor has it that Jeddah character model in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, a game we rather not touch upon.
I actually like that game.
I like the gameplay of that game, and I was very happy that Sigma was in the game because I've been asking for that character for ages, basically.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, but like the character model of Jeddah actually looks pretty good because you see the blood flowing like in his suit. And rumor has it that he was actually leftover of a scrap Darkstalker project.
Huh.
So take it with a grain of salt, and maybe it was something when we had that trailer at that Comic-Con convention, which was never officially put out by Capcom, which was also featured in that Matt McMuscles video.
Oh, yeah, the one from like 2012 New York Comic-Con, I think that one was.
Yeah, that it looked like they put in work, but it was just obviously a cinematic. But like at that point, it was like, oh, we're finally getting Darkstalkers. Spoilers, no. But
you know,
like,
yeah, like it just, I don't know, man. It hurts that, like, you know, we don't get these characters in the game of their own. It's nice that they still put them in stuff, but it's like I said, I think giving it to people who care about a franchise, not saying Capcom doesn't, I have to keep meaning that so people don't like rip into me, but clearly thought hasn't been put in, or people don't know, like people at Capcom don't know how to bring Darkstalkers into the new generation. So I look at things like Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Now, everybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge freaking Power Rangers fan. But that game probably should never have worked at all. Because any Power Ranger game that's come out after like the Super Nintendo and like Genesis era have all been garbage. Like hot, scalding garbage left on a summer's sidewalk during the day, all damn day. They've never been good. They've never been like worked properly. People have like been horrified by them. But this game comes out and it's made by a company who understands the source material. So they got the guy who plays Virgil. They got him to come back and play his character from Power Rangers again. They got the guy to come back and be the Quantum Ranger. And there's even Virgil. He has Virgil quotes in the damn thing. He literally goes to one point. He's like, I need more quantum power. And I'm like, I'm done. Best character in the game right now. And
I've never played that game, but like I watched some footage of it when it's in development, because like Power Rangers was after my like basically when my cartoon period. Let's say that I'm still a big ass child by these days with cosplaying, but like it was just too late for me, and I can see the appeal for people who were a bit younger.
Yeah.
But like I looked at a bit of their development, and I was like, well, if it was like something else, it would have like I don't really have a connection with the franchise. But like they had people there like Clockwork. I don't know if you know that Marvel.
Oh, I know
player.
that name very well.
Yeah, I mean, he was part of like the development team and stuff, and I'm just like, these are people who know how these kind of games work with just like the over the top tag fighters, being like Marvel-esque as we call it, like they know what they're doing, like how things should work gameplay wise and such. And if you, like you said, if you put in like basically fan service things, getting voice actors back and then giving nod to other characters they do, that's like, that wheels in people.
Yeah, and that was the great thing. Well, here's the thing, right? The good thing about, like, the thing about Battle for the Grid, this is a game that I said, I don't think it should have ever worked because of the bad run of games Power Rangers has had since, after the Genesis era and the Super Nintendo era. Mm-hmm. But you got fans working on this who love the game. But you also got fans who weren't really big Power Rangers fans growing up playing this game, because this game offers amazing gameplay and characters are a lot of fun, and it doesn't have like really that cheese that like a lot of people associate older Power Ranger stuff with, because a lot of the early Power Ranger stuff was like super bad in its cheese. But later franchise series, it got pretty dark. Like there was people who died. There was like people, like there was like a lot of like, there was actually stuff on the line, that there was more mature themes that were dealt with, and that was like pretty good. And so people who are fighting game fans are playing Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, and they never cared much for Power Rangers, but now they do, because this game is what I would call the missing link that people want from a Marvel versus Capcom 2. MVC2, obviously, as anybody knows, is still loved by everybody, but we haven't gotten a re-release of it at all on anything. So, when it comes right down to it, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is the missing MVC2 of this generation. And it also not only, they launched it at a good price with a decent amount of characters, and they've been adding more characters. So there was a lot of free DLC at one point, too. And their netcode is solid. Like, they have a netcode that works better than Street Fighter V. And this is a small development company. So that's like what I'm saying. Like, fans do things
that they
better.
Understand. And what you say is like, I've never played the game, but I've heard like the netcode is good, and I've seen a certain story post on a certain Instagram of a certain person who said it should have been on Evo Online, but Mr. Wizard had to do silly things. But I think it's similar to the netcode of Killer Instinct, which had like this really good netcode that I play people on the US good, like. Do that with Street Fighter V, and you can just go and cry in a corner. But like, I believe it when you say it, that like the Battle for the Grid is a good netcode, and like that helps. And it's been like showing, especially in these COVID days, with like a lot like, look at Capcom Cup, like they've been like basically put on blast with like, I don't know if you followed a little bit, but like disconnects or lagging, and people just saying, well, I withdraw because it's unplayable, and that makes it look bad, especially if you want to do esports stuff. And they don't give appeal to a smaller company doing something like that, because it's indie, basically, to say something like to put it in short.
Bingo. Yeah, it really is. And actually, I mean, like, with all this talk about, like, what these companies should be doing and stuff, let's go into the newest news that hit this morning, was the fact that the man who's worked for the company for 30 years almost, Yoshinori Ono, has announced his retirement. He's leaving Capcom.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. For you, all of you who don't know, like, Ono has been a huge part of, like Capcom for 30 years. Like, I think it was originally he started as a sound designer or something like that for Mega Man. And then he worked his way up to where he was with Street Fighter, and he was the man who pretty much saved Street Fighter with Street Fighter 4. But unfortunately, for all the good he's done, there was just a lot of projects that he was involved in that just didn't go right. Like things like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Street Fighter 5, there was a lot, and he was also involved a lot in the Capcom Cup and everything. So he was a main part of it. He does love the series, but just, mistakes were made, and now he's leaving the company, and they've got the guy who took a spot for Street Fighter 5. I think his name is Matsumoto. Seems like a good guy. Like, when I saw, he was one of the guys in that video where they were talking about like Dan and all them.
Yeah.
So I think this is personally, for me, I think this is a sign of the times where I believe that there will be some kind of resurrection in many ways with the fighting game division of Capcom, because we've already got them Capcom killing it with Monster Hunter, the free DLC that they've given, and the constant DLC that you pay for that keeps coming out that people are okay with because, you know, they're getting a decent amount of everything. And obviously Resident Evil is on fire with all of its franchises and its re-releases that people are buying, and Mega Man 11 came out as well. We cannot forget the importance of that game, bringing the Blue Bomber back to us. And I just think now that with Ono leaving, I think it's a sign that Capcom internally might be gearing up to redo their fighting game division and start taking in new ideas. I mean, it's sad to see the guy go because he's been a huge part of so many people's lives for years.
I mean, he was basically the figurehead for Street Fighter, like Harada is for Tekken.
Oh yeah, my man.
And well, I actually looked up some of their silly videos on YouTube today after that news when they did the Street Fighter Cross Tekken skits with like them eating contests and stuff like that.
Yep.
But like Ono has been like you said, he's been part for the company of almost 30 years. Like he's been in some really down times because I think he was in charge for of like what was it called in the US? It was called Capcom Fighting Evolution or Capcom Fighting Jam.
Yep.
And that was a bit one big pile of hot trash.
Yeah.
To keep it really short, but like he was the one, like you said, like he kept bugging higher ups, like, oh, we should do Street Fighter 4, and people really want it, and like he kept bugging them until they finally gave in, and he showed them he was right, and he was basically responsible, like one of the people responsible for the resurgence of like all the fighting games, basically, because everyone followed suit after Street Fighter 4. I mean, yeah, Soul Calibur and Tekken were chugging along, but like just the 2.5D thing, like after that, Mortal Kombat started to do its thing as well. But like, yeah, there were some mistakes made with like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and I don't think it's necessarily all his fault because he was kind of like just the figurehead, and like another Matt McMuscle's video, like just the US brawn saying with them wanting the launch with DLC on disc, like this is not a good idea, but they wanted the title out for like their physical year ends being like March 1st, if I'm correct, or April 1st, I don't know. And like, yeah, you tell the higher ups we need to postpone it. So like there were like a lot of mistakes, and I think he got blamed for certain things, and it's still a shock seeing him leave. I mean, I can understand. I don't know how old he exactly is, but I think he's in his 50s as well.
He's got to be at this point.
Yeah, and he at that point he had like his medical issues as well, like years ago. So probably took his toll on him. But like on one side, I'm like, yeah, I can see like it's definitely going to change, whether it being for better or for worse, we don't know yet. I mean, we already saw more communication of Capcom on that, like Street Fighter 5 summer update, excuse me, with them giving a roadmap, which was the first time they actually communicate clearly instead of just basically giving us nothing or more news soon, and 6 months later we have nothing. But like, I don't know, like they should know by now they need to restructure their fighting game division because like it's been a hot mess, let's be honest. And like what I touched upon with you earlier before we start streaming, I'll touch upon it now. Like there's been this rumor that Ono, take this all with a grain of salt, by the way, that Ono was in charge of development of Street Fighter 6, which was in development for some time, who knows how long. But like the internal testers and some like developers absolutely did not like where it was going. They said like the quality wasn't good, and Ono, being he, was pulled off of the project and demoted again, and they put someone else on it because it seemed to have like some kind of team aspect to it. So I don't know if it's going to be a tag battler. Who knows? We'll see. but it was basically delayed because they did not want to repeat Street Fighter V, and I don't know if it's connected to the whole Ono leaving story, but it already stood out to me this past Wednesday when they had that Street Fighter V live stream, and it was just like, where's Ono? I at least expect him, I know he's not like the main lead developer, but he's like basically the figurehead of Street Fighter, so at least I would expect him to do one announcement, like Kenny Omega did, for example. But like, obviously the writing was already on the wall by then, but it's still sad to see him go. But it's just weird. It's a weird feeling. Maybe like things will change for the better. I really hope so, like you say.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to wait and see. And like, people could be as vocal as they want on social media, but Capcom needs to realize certain things to do them.
Yeah.
And like to listen.
I mean, it's like I say, you should listen to the fans, but obviously don't listen to everything the fans say, because if you do everything the fans say, it will derail your game and how things go. Like, people were like, like if it's a game franchise that keeps doing the same thing and you keep buying it and you're not vocal about it because people are like, oh, you're just a hater or anything, you just hate everything, you just want it to be the same. No, I don't want it to be this. Anything. Then like years later they realize, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that. Like kind of like with Resident Evil 6. Everything. Like they knew that they screwed up with RE6 and what they tried to do, because they had like 8 different divisions working on that game and stuff. So obviously things got lost within translation, as they say. And I think honestly, how fighting games go, Ono probably did receive a lot of heat because like he was executive producer on a lot of stuff, and things that happened also may not have been his fault. Like, I've worked jobs before I became a photographer full time. I worked the restaurant jobs, and there were times where I had really good bosses that were amazing and they cared about their workers. They tried to do everything they could to change things around, and it wasn't their fault, the situations that had happened at the restaurants. It wasn't even close to their fault. But because they were the general managers, they took the blame, and then they would either get, fired or demoted. And, Ono was demoted himself earlier, I think, like this year. So, that's the thing. Things that happened within Street Fighter and all these other fighting games, it may not have been all of Ono's decision. And I honestly know that it probably wasn't, because knowing how some games work, some companies just see the green and not the product they're trying to sell. You can't sell Street Fighter on a name alone anymore because of what SF5 has done with how it was handled. Kind of like how they kept trying to sell an Xbox One when it was first coming out. It's like, hey, we got Halo and Gears coming for this thing and stuff. You're definitely going to want this. But because Halo hadn't been what it had been since Halo 3 or ODST or even Reach, people weren't really a fan of it. And then, same with, what do you call it there? Gears of War. So it's hard. He really probably got blamed for a lot of things that was beyond his control. And it's sad, you really got to work hard with these people that understand. It's like, no, this isn't my fault. I have good ideas. You're just not doing it. And because I've worked jobs too where I knew that my idea would change things around because it worked in other restaurants before. Maybe it might not have worked at this said restaurant, but we could have tried it. And my bosses didn't want to do it. And if anything, it hurt them not trying it. I told them, you got nothing left to lose at this point. So I really think that when it comes to game development, the bigger heads need to understand, look, we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what young people want. We don't get this stuff. Let's leave it in the hands of our developer. Or better yet, let's educate ourselves on what the people like. And that way, if the developers start doing something we don't like, then we're good. It's kind of like, okay, another big decision, right, that was made recently that, we found out about. When Metroid Prime 4 got announced, everybody's going nuts for this game, right? And I can't blame them because it's Metroid. But then that article comes out saying that the representatives from Nintendo went to go see the people working on this game, and apparently it was so terrible and god-awful, Nintendo scrapped it and then went back to Retro Studios, who they should have went through in the first place because they did the first 3 Metroid Prime games, and they were like, can you please make this for us? Like, we know we kind of messed up. Can you kind of come back and help us, kind of? That's kind of like how it is. And if you don't trust your internal teams, or you don't give them the necessary fundings, because we also know from things of past Capcom games like Operation Raccoon City, that stuff was handed to the development team of Slant 6 last minute with no budget.
Yeah.
which is why it turned out like it did. So if you've got the money, I mean, hell, let's also backtrack a couple years ago. I made a couple videos about this. The fact that Capcom could have potentially got bought out by somebody.
Yeah.
Like, they were almost at bankruptcy at one point, and if they had gotten bought out, and people were like, "Oh, who's the best company to handle it? Like, who would they best benefit from going to?" And everybody was like, "Not Microsoft. Don't give it to Microsoft. We'll never get it," because obviously, Microsoft bought out Rare, and we never got anything from Rare ever again. Really, like we didn't get any games from them. And when we finally got Sea of Thieves, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, that's kind of cool, but Rare has a bunch of great games and stuff. And then, like, it took forever to get Banjo and Kazooie into Smash Brothers, and everybody's been asking for that since Brawl. So companies, they need to have a board of directors that understands the money and the business aspect, but they also need to have their ears lower to the ground. They need to be, in my personal opinion, one of the best examples they could be like is how the president of Nintendo Japan, Satoru Iwata, was. That guy always said he may have been, a president, a businessman, but he was first and foremost a gamer. And while some of the decisions he made as president weren't the best, this was a guy who gave everything to keep people from, like, he gave up so much of his paycheck, his salary, to keep the talent at Nintendo when they were gonna have to fire a lot of people at Nintendo, like developers and stuff. And he came out he descended like a god pretty much, and was like, here's money, we're keeping everybody, and we're gonna do this with the games, we want these with the games, I don't want microtransactions or poorly practiced DLC within my games. And then when he passed away, we started getting all that stuff. It's but that's the thing, it's a guy who cares about, he might be a CEO, but he's still got his ear close to the ground, that he knows what's going on. And I feel a lot of other CEOs need to understand and realize that, and stop looking at the almighty dollar and realize the profit. Because if you spend time and money on a project that is good, then you're gonna get a good product, most likely, if you do it the right way.
Yeah, these days it's too much of a thing with they want to make the money, and they have all these like projections, like, oh, we can do this much DLC and a season pass and whatever. Yeah, and it's just like they ship basically an incomplete game, and we'll add in stuff later if it sells well. And like after a couple of launches like that, people will catch on and they'll just not buy your product anymore. Obviously, there's still going to be people who blindly buy that stuff, which is beyond me, but can't help that. But it's just, they need to realize how things work. At least some of them are turning around and realizing mistakes they've been making. I mean, still speaking of Capcom, like the early 10s period, they outsourced tons of things, like you said, with like Operation Raccoon City, Umbrella Corps, Lost Planet 3. That's a franchise we never saw again.
That's true. We haven't.
Yeah, and I'm just like, if you don't have the manpower to do that, I understand you need to outsource stuff, but just don't like outsource it to the cheapest dude who wants to do it, and then still expect miracles and deadlines and stuff like that. It just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't, and I like I said, we'll see what happens in the future. I think personally we might see something within their fighting game division within the next couple of years. Street Fighter 6, I think, will be the restart point. Because as we've talked about, Street Fighter 6 was in development, and apparently it wasn't what people wanted at all. And let's face it, that last wave of DLC we're getting for Street Fighter 5, that was honestly not planned, because they didn't even have a trailer for Dan. They didn't have a trailer for anybody.
They just started, like, when they announced the announcement, basically, which was like maybe a month or 3 or 2 ago.
Something like that, yeah.
They just start working on Dan, and had some movement to show, but like they basically, like, the rest of the characters is nothing more than like concept art, and there's nothing there yet.
Exactly.
So I think they're just like trying to bridge over, and especially with the new console generation coming, I think they're just shifting towards Street Fighter 6 on PS5 and whatever the next, well, depending on exclusivity.
I think they're gonna stick with Sony. Honestly, I think.
Yeah, same.
I think they're gonna do. I mean, they'll probably still have PC SF6, so that's good. But Street Fighter 6, I feel, will be the restart point for them to fix the mistakes of Street Fighter 5, add things in that people want. Get like kind of like cool gimmicks. Like, well, I mean, they're technically adding gimmicks to characters. Like, there's gonna be a gimmick for Akira. She's gonna have like rival school stuff, and Rose is gonna have stuff as well, I think. And obviously, still, there's that one fighter we have left we don't know. So I'm banking on it being a new character because I don't see them hiding a fifth character. Or it's, like you said, they just kind of announced it recently and don't have a full announcement. But if it's gonna be the final DLC character, you got to knock it out of the park with something big. So it will probably have to be an original because we've already got so many of the best characters already. And I think that when you get right down to it, they understand it probably. And they know it because that last DLC where Seth was the final character, that was supposed to be the end because now they have to spend extra time programming the 5 new character movesets for Seth.
Because it was really clear that Seth would have been the final one because it made perfect sense. Like, he can still move from everyone, but he's a lost character, so they already they worked on that and basically can call it a day because it's the end of the cycle, and everyone expected that at that point. But I think they just that's why I kind of believe the rumor about Street Fighter 6 being delayed and demoted, because they suddenly come up with this extra season of Street Fighter 5 to just overbridge that period with they need an esports title at this point in time because they need something. And Street Fighter 5 is the only title they have because Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, well, that didn't work out. And I don't think they don't have any other thing in development that's going to pop up recently. So they're basically stuck with Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, and whatever, and Capcom literally has Street Fighter 5 right now, and that's going to have to carry them. And, Street Fighter 4 carried them for, I think, 7-8 years. And I know people had problems with that game, but it was still overall very well received, and I friggin' love that game. I still play it on streams and stuff like that, and people love seeing me play it, and I feel it's a more fluent game than Street Fighter 5 was, and there's a lot more to it. And I love the focus attack. I love that aspect. I hope they bring that back in the future. But I think, honestly, at the end of the day, it's literally that whole only time will tell what's going to happen. I mean, we have clues and ideas and theories, and we can piece together the stuff that's coming into place, but overall, it's going to have to be big time reveals on what it's going to be, because Street Fighter 6 was originally supposed to be a launch title, apparently, for for PS5.
Yeah, and they initially said when Street Fighter 5 launched that they were having planned support up until 2020, and people being is 2019 the last year? Is this the last year? And obviously Seth was supposed to be the last character. Obviously they did not have all the characters planned out by then, but you could know they would be working on something else. Yeah. And at this point they're playing it safe and using Street Fighter because it's recognizable, but like you said earlier, it's not the safe slap it on the cover of the game anymore, because Street Fighter 5 hurt the franchise a lot. It burned away a lot of people when it launched like a mess, as the mess that it was, I should say. Yeah, it was it's just it because you and I we're older guys, so to see franchises we grew up with become what they become today, and whether it's good or bad, when it comes bad, there's a lot of bad choices. It hurts because we're still the demographic. People who played these games years ago are still playing them mainly to this day. A lot of younger kids, the kids in my neighborhood and stuff like that, they know that I play video games and stuff like that, because when I do photo shoots and stuff, and I have to use my backyard or the woods behind me and everything for certain characters, the kids will see it and they're like, oh wait, you play video games, and they're like, oh yeah, we play a lot of Fortnite and stuff, and I'm just like, it's I should pound every child right in the face right now with my fist. No, I was like, wait, well, what do you kids you kids play
Tekken or Street Fighter or maybe like even Ninja Gaiden. They're like, no, what's that? And I'm just thinking in my head, no, this is where it starts. Kids need to be educated.
I know. I feel your pain.
Yeah, I find all these kids. It's all about like Fortnite and Call of Duty and Minecraft. Those are like no joke. Those are the top 3 that come to mind. And I'm like, oh my god, they're not even playing Nintendo games. Like
no.
Like I'm just like, none of them even mentioned a Mario game or a Zelda game at least. I'm just like, I can't handle this right now.
We're doomed. It's like end of stream. We're doomed.
Doom. I don't know. It's just
yeah. I know. I absolutely know what you mean, and it's like it hurts when you see a franchise basically being butchered and then it dies. And I actually I was worried with Street Fighter V and when it got launched, and it's in a better state now, but like it took a lot of damage control and repair and stuff to bring it to that point, especially if I compare it to like a Tekken 7, which did a lot better than Street Fighter did the last few years.
Oh, Tekken 7, man.
I'm not going to say all the other companies are doing fine, because like what you said, being like franchises being like butchered, like I used to like Mortal Kombat a lot, like the original trilogy.
Same.
But I cannot stand what they've done, like with the recent products, like just altering characters that much, like the personality. That I'm like
things that don't make sense at all. Yeah.
Sindel.
that's the biggest. Like that's the biggest sin right there.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I recently saw the best YouTube comment while I was watching an ABI tutorial video about Samurai Showdown.
Yep.
And he made the comparison to like Samsho and MK11, and like that comment said basically they don't care about their characters or personalities. They're just like a marketing tool, and their thing is violence. It's not specifically death, because the Samurai Showdown has this as well, but like it's just violence, and I just like burned out on that series, because it's just like I'm just like, what have you done with all these characters? And I know like lots of people were upset about Melina in the previous game, and and I can understand that perfectly. And I'm just like, they don't care about their characters anymore, so why should I? So I'm just like very disconnected with that franchise.
Yeah, I mean, well, also at the same time too, NetherRealm Studios has had like that crunch time issue where like they're overworking the developers to the point like where they're getting sick and stuff like that. And Mortal Kombat isn't what it used to be. And I think like Mortal Kombat 9 did a really good job at understanding things. But like if you guys want to like learn more about Mortal Kombat and like what they've done wrong, and you want a really good source on like a lot of stuff, hit up the Fourth Snake on YouTube.
Oh yes.
Yeah, like he does very well detailed, and he makes a lot of good points when it comes to that stuff. Same with fighting games, like other fighting games, but he does a lot of Mortal Kombat stuff because
Yeah.
And Mortal Kombat 11 is already it's already kind of dead. Like, even with all the DLC characters, like, oh my god, Spawn's coming, great. Well, okay, yeah, but, he's coming so late into the game, by the time he comes out, people aren't gonna really care that anymore. Much.
Oh, you're right, Matrix Vampire. It's like, you've been born too late.
Yeah, no, like, she gets Ninja Guy, and she knows what that's about, and she's younger than both of us.
I think she's 22.
So yeah, like that's the thing. It's like when someone like her like hears of an old franchise like Ninja Gaiden, because let's face it, Ninja Gaiden as a game franchise, there hasn't been a new Ninja Gaiden since 3, and that was 7-8 years ago. I mean, you could kind of consider Ninja Gaiden Yaiba because it does have Ryu Hayabusa in it and stuff, but you play as the bad guy.
Doesn't really count.
Yeah. Oh man, like it's just crazy, like how like some franchises being forgotten. But yeah, I know it's probably getting late where you are. Everything.
It's 11 here.
11
yeah,
so
PM.
like I mean we can call it quits right here. We can start winding down a little bit. So
yeah, There's just one thing I want to touch upon before we wrap up, because it suddenly popped up in my mind.
Go for it.
Being back on Darkstalkers, you've seen, being obviously a Resi fan, there's this character model of Victor, being the Frankenstein monster, Darkstalkers. A character model in the what's it called, the RE engine, and there's literally a model in Resident Evil Resistance in one of the stages, and it is him, because like the regular Frankenstein has like the bolts in his neck and he has it in his head and he just looks similar, and that sparked a discussion of some people's like, they been developing things, because like Resident Evil, the RE engine shares a lot of like basically resources. Isn't like, oh, you have this desk, it'll pop up in Resi 2 remake and Resi 3 remake, and maybe even it was already there in Resi 7, who knows. But like they made like this quite detailed model of Victor from Gardenheim, I should say, and like I'm just like kind of confused by it's like, were they developing something? Because it's like it's quite detailed to just be an Easter egg, and like I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. God, man, like it's so, the things we see and come across, dude. It makes you wonder. It makes your head kind of like go, what?
And it's I'm just like, were they developing something on the RE engine? And I would not pick that as the first pick for a Darkstalkers game, what we touched upon being like all the 2D style and cartoony and stuff. And I'm just like, maybe they're testing the waters for like, but I can't see it with them having development resources for like a Street Fighter 6 on the RE engine, which wouldn't be my first pick. But like, I don't know what's going on at Capcom anymore, but I just wanted to briefly touch upon that because I found it like kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've both been around for a while. We've known how like some games start as one thing and then like come to another. Like Resident Evil 4, that was originally like that ended up like was Devil May Cry at one point.
Yeah.
Anything, and then Onimusha came from Resident Evil 4. You know, so you know anything is possible at this point. Like anything that gets made at first will get made into something, whether it was the original idea or not, or if it started as something. But yeah, no. So yeah, I think we're doing. Yeah, we're good on time right now. So, dude, again, thank you for bringing this idea to me. This is a great, because I did a couple of podcasts ago. I had a couple buddies of mine on who are big fighting game fans, and we just talked about like our love of games and like and stuff. But this is like more in depth. This is a lot of fun. So thanks for bringing the idea and actually taking the time to come on for it too.
No worries. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. So for anybody who wants to follow Lost in Nightmares Cosplay, you can see his name right here on the list. So you just type in Lost in Nightmares Cosplay. Make sure you use those underscores in Instagram. And that's where you can follow him to see all the badass work that he does. And for everybody that tuned in today and asked questions, greatly appreciate that. Again, this is like the first time we did it like a live podcast. I wanted to do something for like the followers and my fans out there. So, and Matrix Vampire, thank you for actually for joining, hitting that join button. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. And if you guys want to follow me, you can see all my stuff right here on the screen for the YouTube channel where this actual episode always goes up, and you see the Twitch channel as well, and of course my Twitter and Instagram handles. And if you don't want to type all that stuff in, you can look down in the box below because that's where everything will be. So that being said, guys, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. My name is One Big Boss, and I will see you all next time.